o'clock every Monday night. And of course, the focus at the moment is very much on the Rugby World Cup, which is well underway. And if we thought we were in for a bit of a boring pool stage, we can think again. We've had some big results. And on tonight's show, we're going to be talking a little bit more detail about that Japan victory over Ireland. Coming back from behind in the first half to actually win that game was very impressive. We'll also have a look at the big game between Wales and Australia. Lots of talking points around that one. We'll touch on the officiating and basically anything else that either anybody on the live chat or our guests want us to chat about. But let's not delay further before introducing the guests. Just before you do anything else, if you are new to the channel, then go down below the video and hit the subscribe button. Make sure you catch all of our videos. We are doing quite a few in the World Cup. Some of them are betting related. Some of them aren't. Tomorrow night we'll have Truck and Trailer where we will be previewing Wednesday and Thursday's fixtures. But let's introduce the guests, and making a return after a long absence, well, a relatively long absence in terms of the World Cup because he's missed the whole start of it with us, but he was over in England for a wedding, and it's good to welcome back Judge Rugby. Judge, how are you? And good to have you back on the show.
Well, thanks so much again for the invite. I appreciate it, and it's good to be back, and I can't wait to dive straight in. It's going to be a good one. Excellent,
and I'm sure you had a big party over there in the UK as well, hey?
Yeah, still having some one-on-one time to sort out the loser complex after a full week of spending time with my mates. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, welcome to anybody out there in the live chat. I guess tonight we are competing with Manchester United and Arsenal, so it could be a bit of a tough one. A lot of the guys might catch the show afterwards, but I'm sure they'll enjoy the analysis. And Brendan Shields at Rugbycology on Twitter is joining us now. Brendan, how are things going? I see you've been busy with all the schools and coming up with some good programs.
That's right. Yeah, thanks, Brendan. And sorry for me kind of stepping in late and putting you guys under pressure. But yeah, it's been a tough weekend. I woke up this morning and had a look at my Ireland jersey, and the heart still kind of hurts. But it just makes for an awesome World Cup and for what's to come. So all good.
Excellent. What I'm going to do straight away, I just want to bring up, you sent me a tweet, Brendan, with your rankings thus far in the tournament. Hopefully you can see them there now on the screen. Take us through that. I mean, I see the first thing to note there is that this is after 2 matches, so you've excluded New Zealand and France, who obviously haven't yet played 2 games. But take us through your thinking there, and then we can get stuck into the Japan-Ireland game.
Yeah, cool, Brent. No, for many years, I mean, especially in schools rugby, you always hear the question, did Team A play well or was Team B just crap? And with the World Cup, I thought, let's find a way to kind of build a formula that we can study a team's performance regardless of the opponent. So, so for one day, say, for example, I think what happened with Italy and Namibia, it was the first game. Namibia were really keen for the game, and they really played well that day. Against South Africa, a little bit less so. So I don't really look at, I try to negate one team's performance based on his opponent. So I want to study, for example, how Namibia would have played against South Africa, regardless of how strong South Africa is, and similarly versus how they played against Italy. So, based on that, you can kind of see their true performance in the game. And this World Cup form guide then looks at that. So, you can say that England and both Italy had fairly easy opponents, but they still had to play well to get those kind of scores. So, over time, it will kind of pan out, and then we'll get a better idea close to the quarterfinals. And the idea has always been to really be able to predict a little bit better who's in the best form going into a quarterfinal. Not that in a World Cup, you're still going to get those surprises, but it's kind of shaping up to be interesting. South Africa obviously scoring a good run against Namibia, and a lot of people saying, yeah, but they played poorly and they should have this and they should have this and they should have this. But based on this form guide, South Africa got done what they had to. So from that point of view, they were fairly clinical, and Namibia, funnily enough, didn't play that poorly. So Namibia's form against Italy and South Africa were roughly equal, whereas South Africa just really played well, and they came out and they got the job done. So it kind of throws a different spin on things. And then also to look at Australia, who've now lost a game, but both times they were in the positive. So whereas against New Zealand, South Africa scored a -12 or something around there in their performance, Australia has now won a game and lost a game, but both times were in the positive. So that's a nice indicator of their form. They're kind of there or thereabouts, and watch out for them in the quarterfinals. But the main thing for me, and I've been following these stats, over the different key performance indicators, Italy is gonna give South Africa a really, really good game this weekend. And it's weird to have reached Monday and you still don't really see the South Africans waking up to any analysis about it, and that has me worried. I think we have a hell of a game coming our way this weekend.
Well, in fact, I want to stop there and go to Judge at this point, because when I saw your Italy ranking, it did catch my eye, and I've just started to notice on Twitter that more and more people are starting to say, Judge, well, hold on a second, we're talking about are we going to meet Japan or are we going to meet Ireland in the quarters? Let's not forget we got to play Italy. And what Brendan's effectively telling us there is that the Italians are perhaps being underestimated at the moment, and they may not be the pushovers that I think most of us probably thought they would be going into the World Cup.
Yeah, I think they're quite handy at the moment. They've made a couple of good decisions with a few players that they've brought into the squad. So they've got a couple of form players and got a couple of really good guys in the back line. I think, like, it's not from a numbers point of view, but I think our loss to Italy previously a couple of years back, I think that's really going to work in our favor this time. I think we are very well aware that they are going to be up for the game and that they're actually playing in a bit more form than we've kind of used to them playing or expect them to play. So I think we know it's going to be hard, and I think especially what came out of the game against Namibia is I don't think we played well at all. I think, everyone was having a go at Yanchis and the guys, and if he doesn't perform against Namibia. But as a whole, we were so loose against Namibia. We don't have that discipline where you've got to do the boring good stuff to build momentum, and then you can bring out the flair. We just expect to dominate Namibia, and because we're better than them, we're going to win. So we might as well play loose rugby and unstructured rugby, and we're going to score 200 points. Where the truth is you need to be more structured against those sides because they are so loose. So I think Rassie would definitely take something out of that, and the team will definitely take something out of that, because there's no ways they can be happy with their performance in the first half against Namibia. And I think they're going to build on that and kind of use that as a wake-up call. And I think, it's going to be quite clear. We're going to definitely have a hard 40 minutes. And then after that, we need to have a hard 20 minutes to finish Italy off, and then we'll be okay. But if we leave them in the game for too long, we're gonna struggle.
Well, Joe Lyons, one of our punters who does follow our betting shows quite closely, he's Irish, so a little bit in depression as well, Brendan, at the moment. But he's making the point there, just to touch on the betting angle for a second, that Italy are almost been written off by the bookmakers. We're 28-point favourites against them, and if you had to put on your statistical hat, I'm sure you would say that we might beat them, but we're unlikely to beat them by 28.
So I'm sorry. I just want to quickly jump in. I apologize. My thing is we as historically are very don't respect teams like we should. So we will respect the All Blacks and we will respect Australia and England, and we'll play well against them. But then we'll go loose to Italy and stuff like that. And that's a kind of mind shift that we need to change. And that's the thing that I'm most worried about, and I think will have changed. So that's kind of what I wanted to build on from earlier. So sorry for jumping in.
No problem. Brendan, what do you think of that? 28-point start is big.
I'm talking without any data in front of me, but I can't remember South Africa beating teams, willy-nilly by 28 points. Yes, I think under Rassie we have built a little bit more confidence, and we do seem to free score a little bit easier. But Judge is absolutely right. Going up against Argentina and Australia and these countries whom we have respect for, we seem to get up and go get the job done. But over the how many past years, we always seem to just not get it together against the, I call it smaller nations, but this is where it gets a little bit dangerous, because the last two seasons, Benetton and Zebra just very, very quickly started shaping up in the Pro 14, to the point where last year, I think it was Treviso lost to Leinster by 1 point and then beat them on the other game. It's been really, really close. And the performance of those two teams, who essentially feed Italy's national side, has to suggest that these players are conditioned on a different level now. Their alertness to strategy is really good. And then finally, and this should kind of send shivers down your spine with Jamie Joseph saying 2 weeks ago already they're going to beat Ireland. because they plan to do so. And Eddie Jones talking after the Japan-South Africa game, how they kept always saying, this is the game that we can win. This is the game that we're going to win. And now Conor O'Shea has been saying this, I think, for the last 3 weeks to a month already, that the South Africa game is the one that they target. So, getting the players who are, in my opinion, not shabby at all. In Paris, they have, some serious pedigree. And getting these players believing 100% the South Africa game is one they can win is for me an issue, because I don't think talent-wise they are nearly as far behind as the Italy squad would have been 2 years ago that beat us. So I think just caution to the wind at this stage. And plus 28 by the bet makers, I think, is a little bit crazy.
Yeah, not showing the Italians enough respect. And as Judge said, well, we're really going to have to show them some respect. We will, if you guys do want to touch back on the box, maybe at the end of the show, we can chat a little bit more on that. I just want to move in now, Brendan, to the Irish game against Japan. As you rightly said, Japan had been calling that. I read this game totally wrong. I must tell you, I looked at it and I thought Japan are going to target the Scotland game purely, and I didn't think they would target the Ireland game. I thought it was all hot air. I really thought that Ireland would run away and probably win this game by 20 points plus. Obviously not the case. Japan was super impressive. They nearly took the bonus point away from Ireland at the end there. But what did Japan do? How did they beat the Irish on that? I mean, was it a case of Ireland taking them lightly, or did Japan just have the game plan to beat them?
Look, from a data point of view, I think about 50 minutes in, I started to get really scared because it showed clearly that Ireland just had no penetration at that stage. They had so through a few ringrose runs at the start, and Japan very quickly tightened up. And I do think when the going gets tough for Irish sides, it's usually when a sexton stands up and starts talking loudly against his mate and starts running really hard at the line. You see him doing that for the Lions against New Zealand as well. And I have a lot of respect for Carty and what he's starting to bring to the Irish play, and he's very dynamic, and he's going to make their attack a lot more diverse. But in that moment, when they were under the cosh, Carty wouldn't have been the man, and neither would Carberry. They're both just creative players. They don't have the grunt of a sexton. And what's amazing is, as Joseph said afterwards, they knew that as soon as they get under the Irish skins, they're going to revert back to being conservative, and they're going to take up the Japanese physically. The Japanese have planned for this. So in the last 20 minutes, Ireland attacking on the line, I kind of, you get that feeling inside that you're just not penetrating this line today. Line speed was too good. Tackle technique was too good. Dominated those collisions. And the Irish then, like Joseph said, go back to that conservative mindset where we all know as Springboks, we've been there for like 10 years, where all of a sudden, everything gets thrown to the locks in the 10 channel. Ireland ended up doing that. No, let's say, variation on that attack, and it was easy for the Japanese at the end. But sorry, I'm talking long.
No problem.
Credit to the Japanese. The Japanese played an incredibly astute game on attack. So we always, it's a little bit of a cliche at the moment that defense wins games and all that kind of stuff. But you don't start running from your own 22 to get out of trouble, do so successfully, spread the Irish defense and end up in their 22 if you don't have some sort of confidence and the skill set that's been built up over their camps prior to the World Cup. So all credit to Japan, and my little formula also showed that Japan were literally better on the day. Without Ireland being that poor, Japan just played a really good rugby game, and isn't that fantastic for rugby union going forward if Japan can, from this standard, just kick on?
Yeah, that's it. For rugby, it can only be a good thing. I mean, every neutral. I was actually down in Grahamstown. My daughter had a water polo tournament, and we were at one of the schools. They got a pub there in the school, and we were actually watching that while we waited for the Bok game. And I mean, everybody was cheering the underdog there, and there were no Irishmen in the pub, I can tell you. And I, of course, have got a bit of an interest still in Ireland, in the outrights and that. So when Ireland didn't score, I sort of shouted the one time, and I got everyone sort of staring down at me as if to say, "What are you doing here?" Everyone was rooting for the underdog. But Judge, it really was an incredible performance by Japan. It's really breathed life. Not that the World Cup was boring by any means, but it really has breathed life into this World Cup, because everyone thought they had the quarterfinals nailed. Let's name the 8 teams: Scotland, New Zealand, Ireland, South Africa. That's how it's going to be. And this has just thrown it open, because this group now is absolutely wide open.
Yeah, totally. And, I think agree totally in terms of the attack. Japan made 60 gain line carries to the 45 of Ireland. So they really put their plan in the mix, and they really understood where the gaps and the spaces were, and they exploited them. I think they put up a massive defensive effort, which was impressive. They had a 92% tackle completion rate, which is huge. I don't know when last I saw that. I think I've seen a 90 or a 91 somewhere, but a 90 and 92, especially against a tier one side like Ireland, who like to work you, is something very, very impressive. And I think the big thing for me was the fact that they stopped CJ Stander. CJ Stander always comes into his own in the second half. I really don't know his numbers, but he always seems to be more prevalent in the second half with his carries. James Ryan's also one of the guys that do so well. And the guys were kind of stopped. And then obviously you've got Utamura, who's just smashing kicks over from anywhere. I mean, he's in incredible form at the moment. So, like, it was such a great game. And, like, you could see Ireland, you could see that they kind of looked like they were defeated at some stage. And that's when I agree, like, the guys need to step up. And unfortunately, I'm a massive fan of Rory Best. I just think that in the last few games, so the Six Nations, a little bit towards the end of it, and a couple of the warm-up games, he's struggling a little bit with his set piece, specifically the lineouts. And I think that's weighing on him a little bit. He did miss a crucial one. And I think, like I said before the World Cup, I think Ireland might be like 6 months, 8 months too late for the World Cup. It's quite weird. Like last year, they Grand Slammed and they were going to, like, you'd think they were going to win the tournament. And this year, they're really kind of lacking a few things. So the good thing for Ireland is I'm fairly confident that they will go through to the quarterfinals. So they've got time to sort it out. It just means now that they've got more knockout games, essentially. Like they are under the cosh. And they now need to go 4 games or 5 games on a win. They need to basically Grand Slam. Same as England. They need to go and Grand Slam to go win the tournament. And you're not playing any poor sides anymore. Well, Ireland, it's a little bit different to England. But I just think that there's a lot more to it. And I think what Japan did and how they did it is really good. And with the breaks that they have between games, they don't have a 4-day turnaround at all this tournament. They've got a 5, 6 or 7 day turnaround for each game. And that's going to hurt Scotland, which is the last game. And Scotland play Russia 4 days before they play Ireland. So we are in for a cracking finish to the tournament.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Brendan, how do you see the rest of this group panning up? Because, I mean, ultimately, it's the 3 teams battling there. I still make Ireland favourites to top the group. The way I see it, Ireland will take maximum points from their last 2 games. I am expecting Scotland to perhaps now beat Japan. Perhaps now that, almost Japan are coming in perhaps with a bit more pressure on them. I see Joe mentioned that as well in the live chat. So I'm still seeing Ireland topping this group, but only just, and I can see it coming down to points difference or bonus points, or whatever it is going to be, to see who actually wins the group.
Yeah, it's an odd one, Brent. I just think based on how, if you look at how closely Japan played against Russia, it's always the same game that they played against Ireland, and funnily enough, they have a swagger about them at the moment. That kind of confidence, and obviously, like we said the last time, they enter into these huge arenas where everyone's rooting for them. They're on that cusp, and I was really disappointed in Scotland today. They found it extremely hard to just move out of their own areas and get some play made. When they started kicking strategically, a few things worked out, and they were really smooth, but not really dominating collisions, missing or falling off funny tackles, being stepped in their backline, which is really weird because they're all very nimble and very fleet-footed. The Scottish are. I heard it could be a rumor that there were issues in their camp prior to the Irish game. And for me, it just maybe they've sorted some of it out. But this win was by no means convincing. I mean, if you think about it, 2 penalty tries, yes, that comes from a controversial, that last tackle, which you said you wanted to touch up on. But even the data shows Scotland is definitely not in good form here. And I would be totally calling for a Japanese win over them.
Yeah, it's going to be, and I'd like to touch on some of those controversial decisions at the end. Judge, anything else from you on the Irish Snap before we move on to Wales, Australia?
Yeah, I think just in terms of the pool, I think it's quite important. If we've ever got a chance of three teams finishing on the same points, it's going to be in this pool. So I know we discussed a little bit off air about who's going to do on how it works out. So I just quickly pulled out the information from World Rugby. So if everyone's finishing on the same points, it settles between the winner of the match in which the two tied teams have played. So I don't know what happens if there's three tied teams. I don't know how they're going to work that out. That's not in the scores. So if it's two guys on the same points, it's going to be the winner of the match between the two, and then after that it goes a points difference. So it's it's going to be quite interesting, and I think World Rugby might need to have a look at things. There's a chance that there are going to be three sides on the same points. It's not likely, but there's a chance.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting that. Guys, I'm going to just pop out of the show just for a second because my sound is giving some problems. I just want to change my connection. So, Judge, I'm going to stay with you and just get you started on the game yesterday, which I only caught the second half. I was traveling back actually from Grahamstown to Port Elizabeth. My son was watching the first half on the phone and telling me what was happening, and I was extremely tense. I had quite a big bet on Wales to win the game at 8-10. So, although I collected in the end, I've got to tell you, though, that I watched the second half, and Australia really, really impressed me. I thought they were very unlucky not to complete a remarkable comeback. What did you think of that game, Judge?
Yeah, I really thought after the Welsh start that Australia were going to make a comeback and steal it in the end. And everything happened except the win at the end. There were two key moments in that game. Like for me, there were just two moments. The one was a Dan Bigger tackle on Samu Kerevi. That was incredible. I know it cost Bigger the rest of his game and potentially more. That tackle there is a try saver, and that's the one thing. And the other was obviously keeping the ball in from the penalty, because that was Australia's last shot. And they were all amped and up and ready for it. And those are the two moments in the game. I think if you were going to draw on any two, those are the two. Not the tries or anything like that. The drop goals were obviously important and really key in the start, especially Bigger's one. But I think the Bigger tackle on Samu Kerevi, and I think keeping the ball in off the penalty was huge. I think Wales were properly up for it, and the way that they came out, they needed to score points, and then they were never going to have the gas to completely keep that going. Then they were going to just sit back and just hope that I don't think you ever want to hope that you've got enough points on the board, but I think you want to build enough lead that the other team makes errors. And Australia started coming back hard. And for once in my life, I never ever thought I'd say this, but Will Genia didn't have a great game. And I'm surprised that they kept Foley on for so long, and I'm very surprised that they didn't start with Kurtley Beale at fullback. I think if Australia are going to do anything, they need Beale at 15. Even though Dan Petty had a really, really good game, I just think Beale offers more at 15. But White and Tamura and White and Lealifano are probably the first choice combo at 9 and 10 at the moment. I think Genia is going to sit bench for the rest of the tournament, which isn't a bad thing. I just think he just wasn't. It's a bit weird that Genia doesn't work and Foley doesn't work, and that happened, and it happened for too long in the game. And once it was too late for the guys to fight back. I mean, they literally needed 3 or 4 minutes, and they probably would have won the game. Like, that's how close it was.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, I really felt that Wales were just sort of hanging on in the end. It was an interesting decision, Brendan, and I don't think it was the wrong decision. It was when they were 26-22 down, I think. They had the penalty, very kickable, and they took the 3 points with about 11 minutes to go, which I totally understand, because the way Australia were playing, you would have backed them at that stage to work their way back upfield and potentially get another 3 points. But I just felt at the time, as much as Australia were right probably to take the 3 points, I thought Wales probably were quite relieved that they took the 3 points, because the Aussies had so much momentum. I almost felt that a kick to the corner there, it might have been quite hard. Wales, they, if I remember correctly, earlier in the half, they'd sort of committed multiple infringements. And fortunately for them, I think Australia scored a try before the sort of yellow card came there. And I think they could have been under pressure. What were your overall thoughts on the game? And also, what do you think turned that match?
But just to touch up on Judge's 2 minutes, my 2 minutes, obviously that beautiful Welsh 30-second or 36-second stealing the ball on that same patch of grass, I think, where they then ended up stealing it right at the end as well, like in Australia's 22, which was quite amazing. And I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to drop goals, and just the way Wales did it. You steal the ball. It's already slightly fortunate. I hear some people, kind of doubting that it was the right call by the ref to allow the steal. But you do steal it. You pop a drop goal. Intention is there, and it's just so just clinical. And what I grew up loving rugby. I mean, I was a Cheetah fan, and Nas Botha did that kind of thing to us over and over and over. And it's just I cannot for the life of me understand why teams make so much play when they reach the opponent 22 if they have a 10 that can kick, because it's the easiest 3 points you can get, and it kind of just put down their intent on the game. But I think the 3 points, I agree with you. I heard David Campese say, he doubted that was the right call as well. But at that stage, Australia was making ground upfield at will. They literally, every time they touched the ball, I think made 3 meters every carry. And I do think right at the end, if it wasn't for that steal, everything for me suggests that Australia was going to score and get through, which again, to me, leaves me questioning why no one's really giving Australia a shot. And obviously through the Rugby Championship, they have issues. But Samoa came on, and I know Liliofano, I'm also a big fan. I think he would be the 10 because he's a strategist, and he kind of calms things down, and he has a good kicking game. But Tamua also found it really, really easy to find space. And more importantly, Karevi and O'Connor seemed to play extremely well off Tamua. So there's something for them to ponder. It's going to be their third combination now when they play again. I'm sure Tamua is going to start this time. And, they have a lot of options, but they're not settled enough. And I can't see in Australia go all the way, but I still believe, based on how they attack, we've had a bit of analysis on that, how often they moved from their own 22 into the opponent 50-meter area, so up 2 zones by carrying the ball, which is just not something you see in rugby at the moment. And I think they did it something like 7 times in the game. So they're finding it easy. They're running very square. They're targeting the channel on the number 13's inside shoulder, and they just made so many meters there. And I think everyone's keeping an eye on Karevi because he carries strong. But often he would kind of stand on 13, or we make the pass a little bit earlier. But they're pinning and passing. So it's a really beautiful thing for me. It's a basic rugby skill that you sometimes don't see. We saw Scotland today shifting the ball many times just across the field, quite laterally. Whereas the Aussies now doing this pin and pass, and they're getting that real nice slingshot in. And I think there's a lot of things exciting about their play at the moment. But Wales, if you're that clinical, I say just based on that drop goal at the start, I give them that game. Fair play.
Yeah. No, they fully, I agree that they fully did deserve it. Brendan, I just want to stay with you there because I did see your tweet today about, and you were talking, I think, about that exact stat you were touching on now. The amount of times Australia managed to run the ball sort of upfield and actually retain control of the ball, which is not a lot. We haven't seen much in the World Cup. I mean, are they in the best team in the world at that, in your opinion? Or, I mean, I know the All Blacks can obviously do it as well, although they do tend to kick more. And if so, and saying that, do Australia, because I thought the conditions were pretty good for that game. I can't recall, I think it was in the inside stadium, I'm not too sure, but what I'm kind of saying is, do Australia effectively, are they a team that definitely need good conditions in order to be able to play their game plan?
Yeah, I'd say so. They're not really known. A bit like South Africa, as soon as it starts lashing down, we tend to kind of go within our shells. But Australia, I think at this stage, it's far too early for them to, be a contender because their breakdown is not great. I felt Hooper and Pocock were still feeling each other out. It's like Pocock almost became the ball carrier and let Hooper now do all the stealing. They were quite close to it a few times. I think Adam Ashley Cooper had a good game in the breakdown, which is odd these days to say about a winger. But there's too many chinks. But just comes down to attack. I don't think they're the best maybe at what they're doing, but they're definitely doing something different at the moment. So from, I think, an analysis point of view, that's exciting to see. It's just fun to see someone doing something a little bit different. And Japan would be the closest to what Australia is doing at the moment, which is a ballsy, take the ball, run with it, back yourself, have good support lines, that kind of thing. So it's just really refreshing to see.
And Judge, looking at those two teams, Wales and Australia, I mean, I was impressed by both of them at certain points, very impressed. But at the same time, maybe the way Wales sort of faded, I was thinking, well, can they win this World Cup? And the question on those two teams that I want to ask is, are either of those likely to go on and win the World Cup, or do you think they're going to get stopped?
So I know we spoke about this before, but I'm a big fan of Australia, but I'm very cautious of them during World Cups. They're really good. I think they do play something different. I think one of the key things is James O'Connor at 13. I don't think anyone saw that coming 6 months ago, let alone like a year ago. Like, he's really been out in the wilderness, and him playing at 13 was quite interesting. But he's starting to gel nicely there, and that's what's a little bit worrying for a couple of the other guys. I think that's key. I think Naisarani at 8 has been a revelation for them. I think they've kind of blocked that hole, and then they've got Pooper at 6 and 7 that can fix that up. And I think once they start gelling, I agree that Pocock and Hooper didn't really sort out. They didn't really balance each other out like they have in the past. And I think that's a time in the saddle thing for Australia, and that's just because Pocock hasn't played so much. So I don't think it's going to be long before they start gelling. And I think Wales went and played Six Nations rugby before the Six Nations had bonus points. And that's what the Northern Hemisphere sides bring, is they bring that sort of rugby where the drop goals matter, the penalties matter. We've been stuck in bonus point rugby for much longer than they have, and we want to score tries and more of them. And the fact that New Zealand are doing it, everyone's like, well, obviously we can do it, because our ego's getting burnt, and we're like, listen, we can do this. So like the mindsets are different. So Wales played Six Nations rugby, and they won the game, and they won it well. And Australia started playing like good running rugby. And I mean, Wales had to make 183 tackles in the game. So yeah, they made 152 of their 183. And Australia were only asked to make 92, of which they made 77. So Wales nearly made double the amount of tackles, which essentially all came down to the second half. Like that's really where they made all their tackles. So for them to hold on is huge. And I don't think Wales can go on and win it. I don't think that they have I don't think they've spent enough time in the quarterfinals and semi-finals and finals of the tournament to do that. I think they've got the right IQ and everything. I just think at the time, in a tight game, the moment might get a bit much for them, especially after this game against Australia. Like, it really pushed them. I think Australia can go on and win it, but won't. I don't think they're operating where they should. I think Australia, out of the two, definitely have the better mental capacity to win the World Cup. I think Wales might be. They might not have it. It sounds a bit harsh, but I just don't think that they're going to take that step yet. I think they're going to go really, really close. I mean, if you look at France and how many times they've been to finals and England, like, they're getting there and they're understanding the processes better, whereas Wales haven't had that opportunity yet.
Right. Just want to touch while I'm talking on this game, Brendan. Let me go to you. We talked about the bigger tackle, which effectively a try-saving tackle. But there was also the midfield tackle where Karevi was actually penalised for leading with a forearm. Have you had a chance to have a good look at that one? I see plenty of debate on Twitter about that tackle. Some people saying, yes, he shouldn't have been leading with a forearm, and others saying, look, the Welsh tackler was coming in totally high there. And I mean, ultimately, he just pushed through it. I didn't watch it live, and I'll tell you my opinion was I watched it this evening for the first time, and I thought the guy was incredible. I thought Karevi was incredibly unlucky to be penalised there. I thought, to me, he had the ball almost in both hands, and he was barging through. And my personal opinion, he was unlucky, but interested to hear your views on that one.
Yeah, my theory is always you cannot really control what the ref's going to decide. And I think the intercept try straight after that penalty that Wales kicked. Remember, Wales still had to kick that penalty. It wasn't an easy one. Yes. And then the penalty, the intercept straight after that, I think was, it's not a very scientific term or a scientific way of looking at it, but I think Australia was sulking a bit and kind of just a little bit slow and lethargic, and even the way they couldn't track back to stop it was for me really weird, with Kwerabeti being totally out of position at that stage. So it's always with referee decisions, it's really how you respond to it. There was more than enough time in the game for you to say, Australia had more than enough opportunities to clinch it still. So it's definitely not a game changer. A lot of people would say, yeah, but that changed the game. It only changed the game if the players are not mentally strong enough to handle the disappointment of that. I think the referee there was, I always use the word, it's just a variable. And Wales still had to make those plays to make a counter. Sometimes you get lucky with referee decisions like that, but you still have to make it count. And Wales, again, a very clinical performance because the opportunities they had, they really just nailed, didn't they? So
Yeah,
that's
they
the
certainly did.
thing I think Judge is talking about.
And Judge, what did you think of that? What did you think of that opinion, of that particular decision? Because it took them. I was driving. My son had the thing on, and he was talking me through it. And it took about 5 minutes to make that call. Maybe it wasn't as long as that, but it seemed like forever.
Yeah. So I think it was slightly harsh. However, so there's two things we need to look at is what Karevi was doing was going in for like an offensive, like a fend with his arm. So he was going to double bounce and then fend. Okay. The rules state that you may not lead with your forearm. So when you get the fend wrong, okay, and you either get your arm up too soon, or as what happened now is he bounced him and then got the arm up and then it made contact with him. It looked like he was leading with his forearm. It's a penalty. So I don't think he was leading with his forearm. I think he mistimed what he was doing in terms of the forearm kind of bounce. If he had his hand up straight and did it, it would have been okay. But you want to bounce with the ball in the way and how strong he is and up front, he wants to do it, and he got it wrong. And it looked more like a leading with the forearm than the fend, which it was. So by the law, they got it right. I think I can't remember who reffed the game, but I thought he made such a good decision in terms of the TMO stated in the beginning that he first made contact with the shoulder and then made direct contact with the throat, which doesn't make sense because you either make direct contact with the throat or you slide up off the chest. So like the TMO could really have sunk him and got him a red card if the ref didn't actually take the time to look at it. So the ref then talked it down to a penalty only, and I can see why, because it looks like he's leading with his forearm, and it's just a mistimed thing, and timing doesn't come into facts anymore. We know that. Like if you mistime something and you smash someone on the pip, it's a red card, and that's it. So I think it's highlighted a few things. I think a lot of guys do it, and the fact that it was slow mode is a little bit worse. But I thought the way Michael Hooper handled that with the referee was incredible. He turned around to the referee and he says, "Why are you penalizing us for his poor tackle technique? Because it's not our fault that he's come into contact badly," which I thought was incredible. Like he really, really did well there. He didn't influence the decision in any way, but I just thought the way that he brought that across was really good.
Excellent. Anything else on any other decisions or anything on that game, Brendan?
No, not really. I just think I just want to touch up on Judge saying about Wales maybe not having World Cup pedigree. We've always said that's going to be this year. It's the best chance ever for the Northern Hemisphere teams to really make it work. But it's just that pedigree thing. And are we about to witness a Northern Hemisphere team? One of them, it could be Ireland, it could be Wales, breaking the chains of their history, so to speak. But quite rightfully as well, Australia have come into many World Cups being slightly dodgy, but they have World Cup pedigree and they kind of know how to pull it together. And to touch on the Irish with that, you guys will remember Matt Stevens, the South African prop, got the English together in 2007 after the loss to South Africa, and they sang The Gambler, and they kind of just pulled together and became mates and played much better from there on in and made the final. And so too, I think it was in 99, the Australians came in as favourites and had a terrible group stage and ended up going for a few drinks and clubbed together and also made that final. So I think I read today somewhere the Irish have skipped their open session and something's going to happen. They don't look like a happy team. They never smile. They're really taking themselves too seriously at the moment. So it's going to be really interesting. That's what makes World Cups exciting to see culturally, the cohesion that they always talk about. How do you fix that? Because that's not something a stat or any time on a training pitch or any more conditioning is going to fix. That's the mental side and the cultural side. So it's going to be fascinating to see how the Irish respond.
And Judge, let me come to you now and just generally on officiating. There's been plenty of controversy. And I see Hansen sort of came out now, the New Zealand coach, and sort of said, look, give the refs a break, guys. And I kind of agree with him in a way because, yes, at the end of the day, you do get shocking calls from refs, and I guess those have to be highlighted, blatantly incorrect ones. But a lot of the let's call it decisions that get criticized, when you actually go on, you see that people are actually quite divided about what the actual right decision was. And, rugby is just that sort of game at the moment. If you search at every ruck, I'm positive you could find an infringement of some sort. And I wouldn't like to be a ref at the moment. It doesn't seem, it's very seldom that you're going to get a ref coming out of a game where everyone was happy with his performance. What's your opinion on the sort of reaction to all these referee decisions, and also on the actual standard itself? Has it been too low in this World Cup, or is it just blown out of proportion?
If there are two things that I could take out in terms of what should have been red cards, was the two Samoans in their first game, Lilo and I can't remember the other guy's name.
Yes,
I thought that both of those were very close to being red cards, and none of them got one. So, that was quite questionable for me. I also wasn't listening to the game, so I didn't hear the conversation with the TMO. So the TMO is adding a little bit more influence. But in terms of the refs, I don't think there's been massive howlers. There's been some, guys offsides. Guys have been offsides forever. You make a line, guys are going to try and cross it. That's just the way it is. And the truth is the ref trying to manage so much on the field, it's a bit challenging. The other thing is you want to pile the pressure on the refs, go for it. But they're going to make mistakes, just like players. So if we're gonna carry on burning them and having a go at them, and it doesn't matter who you name as a ref to face South Africa, everyone's going to be like, no, not him. I can't believe he's French. Not again, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, seriously, you're going to go look for problems and look for issues. I will say one thing, though. I did expect to see a lot more of Wayne Barnes and, to escape me, Nigel Owens,
yes,
taking a little bit more of the high-profile games. They are not refereeing. They're not officiating many high-profile games now, which is quite interesting. So it's not helping the French referee federation or the French rugby guys, because the French referees are at the middle of all these big games, and now everyone else is climbing on the bandwagon saying how crap the French referees are. So I don't think it's that bad, and I honestly think there's marginal things like the guys in any close game. If there's a game settled by less than 5 points, the team that lost is going to go find a reason where the ref made a mistake that cost them the game, and a momentum shifter and this and that. But if a side wins 50-0 and the ref makes 20 errors, no one's really going to say anything. So I just think I think I'm just going to lay off a little bit. And I think as long as they call a ref, if he makes an error against your team, as long as they're honest enough to say that he made errors for that helped you as a side, then I'm happy to have that conversation. But everyone's only one-eyed at the time, and which is a bit frustrating.
I tend to agree with you there. I also find that quite frustrating as well. Maybe it's interesting what you mentioned about Barnes and Owens perhaps not getting the high-profile games. I suppose it's a case of the powers that be knowing what they've got in those guys, maybe, and perhaps trying to see how the other guys stand up. Because as important as some of these high-profile games are, they're not as important as the games you're going to be coming to in the last 8. But Brendan, before I go into a specific example of something that happened today, your overall thoughts on the officiating and the Twitter outcry, if I can call it that?
Yeah, look, I think I've been quite vocal about it, and I got burnt a bit for, saying the law should sometimes be judged, because I do think the ref is a judge. So, his call is the law at that stage, and there is nothing really you can do about it, except, like I said earlier, just use the chances that you do get from. It might be quite controversial, but I enjoy the French refs. I enjoy the way they don't just blow scrums as penalties the whole time. Yes, sometimes they do and they get it wrong, and now people cry about that as well. But they're also not pedantic around the breakdown. And yes, now again, people are saying that's how people get injured and so on and so forth. But I've played backyard rugby games that are tougher than some of the calls that's being made now. Supposedly protecting player safety. These are not soft boys. These guys are conditioned to the heels. They can take a punch to the head. You go and watch a rugby league game at this stage, it looks like warfare. Whereas in rugby union, every single call is now referred in slow motion. The guys are tough. They can handle it. And yes, the HIAs are a great thing. And if you feel a player is a bit shaky, take him off and all of that. We do understand it. But like I said, I kind of like the flow of the game that the Revs are allowing during the World Cup. There seems to be a flow to all the games. We don't have that many stoppages, and the ones we do have where they refer then players getting injured is a directive from the top, and also based on all these slow motion shots and crowds getting more vicious over refereeing. It's a culture change. Maybe it's going to spill over in the World Cup, and we're going to get over it at some stage and just start enjoying the game again. I don't know if we're going to need some re-education, but I don't want to see young people in the room at the moment when there's adults, because all they do is moan about the ref. And for me, it's a big problem, because how are we going to grow their love for the game if when you lose, it's just always the ref's fault, and all you end up doing is looking at what the ref's doing and not, never the players. You don't even see the nice plays and the good passes and the beautiful drop kicks because you're too concerned about the ref and the breakdown. So, yeah, I hope it gets really hot in the World Cup and we debate it and we get it over and done with so that we can move on.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I watched the All Black South Africa game with my 14-year-old son last week, and then we had some other people pop around when we got back from our trip away today. And yeah, fair enough. His main comments on the game were around old Garces and the way he handled things in the second half. So you're right. I mean, the youngsters feed off this, and it is a bit unfortunate. I guess it's one of those things. It's like politics these days. Everything almost seemingly, I won't say gets decided in social media, but it's such an influence, and it does tend to sort of change the way people think, I guess, in a way. But guys, there was an incident today I just want to chat about because I tweeted about it. It was, I don't know if you guys caught the Scotland-Samoa game, but it was an incident quite near the end where the winger was diving for his second try. His name just escaped me now.
Who was
that, sorry?
Maitland.
Yes, Maitland. Maitland was diving for his second try, and he knocked the ball on. But then in the end, it was a penalty try. And I don't necessarily, I tweeted at the time, and a few people misinterpreted my tweet to mean I didn't think the guy deserved anything for it. Because what happened was the Samoan, in my view, he was sort of going for the tackle, and then Maitland dived, and he kind of pulled back, and he went in knees first into Maitland's back, and he rightfully, I think, got a yellow card, and he was gone. But I asked a question on Twitter at the time: how do you tackle a guy that's sliding to the line? And I'll bring up, you probably saw it earlier, I was trying to get it ready and I sort of brought it up. Darren Jordan, actually, there were quite a few people who sort of took me on about the argument of, not with the knees and all the rest. But there was also a few people who said, it's a good question. How do you tackle a guy? Because in theory, are you diving on the guy? And then he sent me this clip here, which I'll just put up here, which was in England, I think it's an England-Wales game, is it? And he actually takes the legs out to touch like that, which I guess is pretty impressive. But Brendan, let me start with you. How do you tackle a guy that's sliding to the line? Is it possible to almost tackle a guy legally?
Yeah, look, I think it's a hell of a timing thing. The English clip is a very good example because he kind of led with his arms, but he never really touched the Welsh player with his arms. The contact was still with the knees. So if we were going to be pedantic, you could refer that and say he didn't end up making contact with his arms, even though he had the intention to, and so on and so forth. But it is going to be really interesting. I think, in the scheme of things, probably a fair call to give that try, because you could argue, what happened to the Samoan defensive line? They should have aligned better, and the timing of the tackler was always the problem there. If he was literally a split second earlier, he would have been able to catch Maitland before he dived. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I think in future, a lot of wingers will see this and think, oh, that's a nice freebie, because there's still no proof that he was going to jot the ball down, even though, he got tackled. I think he knocked it on almost like half a meter before the line. So it was interesting. But I do think, in the scheme of things, fair call, because the question arises from the alignment of Samoa where the break was made already. That's where they lost it. So the call can go against them, and fair enough. But yeah, one to watch for the future. We'll see what they're going to do.
I definitely had the impression that he dived too early for the line. And I didn't watch it again too closely, I must say. But Judge, it's quite an interesting one, because by sliding along the line, and let's face it, conditions aren't always conducive to it, but if you've got a greasy pitch, you can slide a good couple of meters. And by sliding towards the line, it's almost impossible to stop the guy. And let me add something else in. The other option is to dive for the line. If you dive in the air for a try and you get taken out, I mean, in theory, the guy's infringed, hasn't he? I mean, can you actually stop a guy diving through the air?
So in terms of diving early on a wet pitch, like we've been doing it for years, and it's it's part of you, like a right that you earn as an attacking player. You've got that ability to do that. And I think the only way to do it, I think diving on a player with your knees is a foul, and it's a penalty, and therefore yellow. I didn't see the incident, but I'm just judging on what you guys said. So for me, if he's the last, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you take the rule is if you take the infringing player out of the mix, would the other guy have scored? So, and if he was the last man, yes. So therefore, it's a penalty try because he was the last man, he infringed, and it is what it is. And like, I think as an attacking player, you've earned that right to dive and slide if the pitch is wet. Remember, the guys scrambling are doing things like a lot harder. They're trying to make up, and they're trying to make a decision they really need to put their body on the line to get you out, because there's nothing else they have. In terms of diving in the air and you getting tackled out, that's not a tackle in the air as if you're jumping or anything. That's different. So yeah, you can, but to tackle a guy supermaning is quite interesting. I've never seen anyone do that. And I think, it goes back to, I think it was Van der Greef many years ago. He put in that massive hit in the corner, and I think it might have been against Australia, but he completely shoulder barged the guy out of the way. But that's all he had. When a guy's going for the line, the only thing you have is your body to try and get him out. So that England clip was impressive. I think that's a great shot. But like, if he's got enough space, if you can wheel him around, but if you make contact with the knees on a guy's knee, they're not going to complain about it unless you make contact with the guy on his head. So it's a little bit of inconsistency, but judging by what you said, I don't have an issue with that decision made. I do need to watch it, though.
Yeah, I didn't really have an issue. I think in terms of the letter of the law, I did think the decision was correct. I did think that Simone was probably not intending to lead with a knee, but that's the way it turned out. And I accept the decision there. It just got me thinking that I wonder why players don't almost dive more, and I'm wondering if we're going to see more of it, because it is really hard to stop a guy when he does dive, and for that matter, come through the air. So we'll see if we see more of it.
Good luck
during the
diving and trying to get a 5-meter slide when you're playing in Kimberley, but you're going to come back with no arms, no skin. You have to get skin grafts from everyone in your team to play for another month. That's ridiculous. You can only do that in wet weather.
No, that's for sure. Look, it's definitely, conditions have got to be conducive to it. But if I was kit manufacturers, I'd be trying to come up with some sort of badge on the front that helps the guy to slide. We'll see. I mean, the game gets so technical these days. Guys, that's it then, I think, for that analysis. Anything else you want to discuss? Maybe a prediction for you both on the Italy-South Africa game? Judge, starting with you.
I think, and I really do think that this week and after what happened in the first half against Namibia, as I mentioned, and I don't think Rassie would have been happy with the way the guys stepped up and started. I think they're more happy with the way they finished. But I think from a discipline point of view, he's had a lot of time to work with the guys after the All Blacks game, and we're going to just go through. I think he's going to get the boys fired up, because this is it. Like, it's now. And once you win this game, then you've got Canada, and then we play knockouts. I think that's how it would have been. It would have been big game break, and then knockouts. And I think we're going to win. I reckon we'll win by 15-20. I really think we'll put in a decent one.
Okay, and Brendan, over to you. A prediction for that game. I see Joe Lyon saying box by 15 or under, so he does see a box win, but not by as big as the bookmakers are going. What do you reckon?
I reckon, I went Super Brew box by 12, but it all depends on injuries in the first half. Again, depends on whether there's controversial calls and how you deal with it. But our 10 issue is for me a biggie, and I think we've seen Pollard over the years. Once he goes down, it's not like he bounces back the next day. So that's going to be an area where Italy is really going to focus on, as well as Faf's kicking or non-kicking, and sometimes kicking and not kicking well. So there are serious chinks in our armor. But whether on the day, if our pack can just dominate Italy, I don't think they will. But if they can, all the other faults in our backline and those cracks will be papered over again. We will deal with those from the quarterfinals onwards.
Johan Esterhuizen, they're saying a box by 18. Guys, before we close off, one other thing that I actually wanted to raise with you guys Just a bit of interest in is it Group C? What was originally the group of death? I'm not so sure it is the group of death anymore. Now that you look at the Japan group, but England, Argentina, France, their group. So we've got England coming up, I think, against Argentina this weekend, and assuming England beat Argentina, which I expect them to, you'd say the English have guaranteed their spot in the last 8. And the fact that France beat Argentina, you would expect them to beat the other 2 teams in the group. You'd almost say that it's between France and England for top spot. And my question to you is, does it really matter to either of those teams whether they finish first or second? Because in theory, this could also be a case of finishing second in the group mean.
Just losing you there, Brent. I'll judge you answer it.
Yeah,
I'll once again that I'd suggest throwing or anything. But is there lose me? Yeah, thanks.
Brenty, we lost you. I think I do think England are going to finish top, and I think France are going to finish second. Like I don't see Argentina causing any more troubles. That was
sorry,
game.
Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry, man.
The robot voice. Brent's Robocop.
Yeah, I think like England 1, France 2. And also the other groups are also like unsure. I think you just want to get through to the quarterfinals because at the moment there are a couple of other groups that are kind of failing around. We don't really know what's happening. But I think once you get to the quarterfinals, you're not going to have an easy run in. I think the only time that you might get an easy run in the quarterfinals now, and excuse no disrespect, but if Japan make the quarterfinals, which is going to be really interesting and be great, but I don't know who they could beat in the quarterfinals. Other than that, I'm not entirely sure. I don't think it matters. I think it was that France-Argentina game that was really important, and I don't see England falling short against Argentina, and the French game will be quite interesting.
Right, yeah, and I'll just answer Joe. I see the comment by Joe. I can't see New Zealand or France slipping up on Wednesday. But I do think, looking at England's strategy moving forward, if they can beat Argentina, they can almost relax against France. I think that's going to be a key thing for them to have a really, really comprehensive win over Argentina and then close the book on the group. And against France, they can rest a few first-team players and really just start preparing for the quarterfinals. So that's something I can see Eddie Jones would strategize with. We've been rickrolled some things.
Guys? Sorry.
So we all of our sound is off by the looks of things.
No, you're back on. I hear you fine, Judge.
Yeah, but on the chat, the guys are saying that there's a trouble with the sound.
Oh, is it? Let me just have a look, maybe, because I didn't hear you for a while, and now it's suddenly back on.
I'm back. I'll let you two come.
Yeah. Bit of a tough one.
How about France, USA handicap? I'm all over. Let me just check.
Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Let's grab some. Let's see what's happening with the rest of the fixtures while we're at it. Might as well talk some more rugby until we get kicked off.
Let hear me.
No, he's dead.
So listen quickly before he cuts us off. Japan Samoa. What do you reckon is going to happen there?
Japan, I can't see them slipping up. Like I said, I prior to coming into the World Cup, after the game against South Africa, where I think they were quite poor, afterwards you heard Jamie Joseph say, look, this wasn't a game for them to win. They just wanted to try a last few things, and he really wasn't concerned. So his body language at this stage says to me he's really in a lot of control over this campaign. We should never forget that they now have that huge crowd behind them. They're becoming a little bit legendary in Japan. So against Samoa, I can't see them slip up at all. I thought Samoa was really average today against Scotland as well. So I can't see Japan actually slipping up. And for me now, I see Japan finishing first and Ireland second.
Yo, that's a huge shot. But I will say something. The Japanese squad and the balance that they have, and with their tight five, I think they're in a pretty good spot. And their loosies are incredible. I mean, if you look at the loosies that they can field, it's really good. They've got 2 quality 9s. Utamura at 10 is really handy. Midfield's good, and the outside backs are pretty handy too. So I think it's a massive shot. Finishing first, and it's only because it's Japan and they're playing, and they've already beaten Ireland. It's just such a weird thing to say, but if they finish first, it would be incredible, and then essentially we would face them in the quarters.
Right.
But what I do think is, I was very shocked at how Samoa played today. I really thought they'd bring more. It really was. It was a crap game of rugby. Like, there were more handling errors and issues all over the show. So, yeah, we'll see. But I think it's a massive shot. Japan finishing first. To be fair, if Ireland are going to get 10 points out of their next 2 games, I think I could say that with confidence, which puts them on 16. So Japan just need to get 6 points to equal that. So they need to win in a bonus point loss. So they could get 2 wins or a win and a bonus point win, or
their maximum points. Japan's max is 19. I know they can get 19, and I think Ireland's max is 18 or 17. So Japan, potentially can reach. Is it 16? Okay. Yeah. But I base that on Judge. I base that purely on just the defensive organization. So it's one thing to tackle, and it's one thing to have spirit, which is always a tier 1 type of thing. When there's an upset, you look at South Africa in 2015. This was a spirit win. But I think Japan is very different now. Is there's serious organization and rugby EQ there. This is not a spirit thing. It's not as if guys are tackling with funny technique and just going totally gung-ho. Yes. This was proper defensive organization that shut Ireland out. So, the way Australia, for example, made lots of yards against Wales, that never happened with Japan and Ireland. So based on that, I just can't see Scotland have the penetration to beat that Japanese defense. So like you're saying, oh, it's Japan. It's almost like it's something you can't get out of your mind. Yeah. It just feels weird saying it. But I think looking at the rugby that they're playing at the moment with a ballsy attack, good kicking game, great kicking accuracy, and then great defensive organization, why not?
Yeah, I must say I do agree. I think it's massive. I also think what's really important is that they have good break between games. So the whole thing in 2015 was they had 4 days between South Africa and, if I'm not mistaken, they played Scotland again. So I can't remember who the game straight after us was. So that's a great thing, and it allows the guys time to settle. But they've also got options, and they've been together as a squad, an extended squad, for a long time. Like, a lot of guys missed Super Rugby this year because they were in the Japanese squad, and they missed a lot of the domestic competition. So they've really been building a squad. I mean, Lapis was playing for Japan in non-official games that weren't capped games, and he was captaining them before he had even qualified for Japan, because he was allowed. It's a non-cap game, so he was allowed to do it. Yeah. So that was like there's always plan, and there was always structure there. So, I agree totally with what you say, and my apprehension is because it's Japan, but if you look at the bigger picture, they really are in a good space.
Yeah, I think if from this World Cup we can get and it pains us as Southern Hemispherians to say that, but I'm thinking of the health of the game. We need to get a Northern Hemisphere team there or thereabouts, or maybe two of them in a semi-final. That'll be good for the game. It'll be very good for Japan to, convincingly make this quarterfinal, but then kick on from there. Maybe, the pedigree thing is a huge factor in World Cups. Maybe the quarterfinal would be a step too far, but a quarterfinal would be enough, I think, for the investment in Japanese rugby to kick on, for more kids to take up the game, and all the kind of things you need to build a deep culture around a sport and over time get consistent results. So that will, for me, be a huge win after the World Cup.
I'm all for Japan doing well in the quarterfinals, as long as it's not against us. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
If they knock New Zealand out, I'm happy.
Guys, I'm just checking in my back. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we got you.
Okay. Excellent. Sorry about that, man. Both my Wi-Fi and my 3G seem to go down at the same time. Technology. Man. But thanks for that, guys. Shot, guys. Anything else you want to chat about before we say cheers?
I'm all good.
Excellent. Brendan?
I'm all good. Thanks for the invite, Brent. Really appreciate it. And no biggies about the technology. Don't worry.
Yeah, some things we can't control in life. But guys, thanks very much. Right. Really enjoyed it. So thanks to the guys who came in live. I think Shane confirmed my suspicions there, where he said he was quickly popping in at halftime with Man United, I think, leading Arsenal 1-0 there. So I think a few guys have caught up. We had, but we did have a few guys joining in the comments. And if you are watching the show afterwards, then please do go down and hit the subscribe button. Judge, great having you back in the country, and look forward to chatting to you as we head towards the World Cup final.
Thanks very much. And again, thanks so much for the invite. I'm looking forward to some more chats, and I'm looking forward to diving in hard with the World Cup.
Excellent. Thanks, Brendan. Thanks, Judge. And we'll see you soon. Thanks to all of you guys who watched the live chat.
Thank you.